Salute BookTube. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. I've got my mail haul part 2. This is my Wintery Winter 2026 book haul. You can watch part 1 in my backlist. This book haul was inspired by watching a lot of the uh, booktubers in infidel Christendom who celebrate something called Christmas. And in this Christmas season, you give each other gifts. And I was watching a lot of booktubers, and a lot of them got gifts, and they got gifts of books that they've been hauling on their channels. And that made me very jealous because I'm based in the Middle East, a country called the United Arab Emirates, very much in the heart of the Islamic world. And we don't celebrate Christmas and we don't give gifts. So I got a bit jealous, a little envious. I said, hey, I want to get books. And I thought, okay, then I'll go and buy books for myself. So we have a book haul here now that I'd like to show you. There's just 2 caveats I want to give before I show you the books. Number 1 is there's a lot of books, and that's why this book haul is divided into many parts. But I didn't buy all these books at one time. These are an accumulation of book purchases for the past couple of months, November, December, and the early parts of January. So don't think that I went and bought this all at one time. I've just slowly accumulated these books. The second caveat I wanted to give is, yes, it's a large book haul, and these large book hauls are usually done by the nefarious sort of booktubers who want clickbait, who want views. That's not why I'm doing it. Yes, they're large book hauls, but the reason for that is where I live here in the UAE, there's only about 3-4 bookshops in the entire country, used bookshops. And these are very small bookshops. They're also getting smaller and smaller, becoming much more online. Rather than having a bookstore where you can go and browse, they are becoming online, and they're just renting out storage rooms, and you purchase used books online, and then they just give it to you. And that's a disturbing trend because I enjoy browsing in bookshops, but it shows that these shops are small, independent bookstores that there's a fine line between profit and loss. And so if I don't support these bookshops and others like me, the small amount of readers here, if I don't or we don't support these bookshops, then there's a big possibility they go out of business, and then I'll be in serious trouble. I'll have to rely on Jeff Bezos and his buddies at Amazon, and I don't want to do that, not too much at least. So just keep that in mind. Finally, just one last thing actually before I show the books, or just a reminder. I've divided this book haul into sections. Again, most of it is nonfiction, most of it is history. Actually, I think today it's all history. So if that's not your thing, this video might not be your thing, but I divided the books that I purchased and then for these videos based on my shelves. And again, I won't go through my shelves. I've explained it in the last 2 videos. But in the first part, I did this row of shelves. Those are ancient histories, mostly ancient Middle East, Near East, Egypt, Mesopotamia, but also some Roman Greece. And then those are Middle Ages, which is the Dark Ages or Medieval Ages in Western Europe. But in the Middle East was a golden age. A lot of books about early Islam and the Middle Ages, basically. For today's haul, I think most of the books are going to be related to that shelf there, and I think a little bit of that shelf. That shelf is modern Middle East, so that's 20th century Middle East, really the fall of the Ottoman empires, nation states in the Middle East, that sort of thing. And then over here is Gulf books, the Arabian or Persian Gulf area where I live. Those are specific for that region. Anyway, just with that thought clearing, so we're going to do mostly, it's going to be this, a lot of Middle Eastern stuff, and then later I'll do more Western histories, etc. So starting with the first book, This is actually a compendium of different authors talking about a specific country, a Middle Eastern country. This is Syria through writers' eyes. And you can see the list of these are Western authors talking about Syria, the Middle Eastern nation of Syria. Some of the authors here, I don't know if it shows here, but you can see T.E. Lawrence, Colin Thubron, excuse me, Hester Stanhope, Isabel Burton, William Dalrymple, Edward Gibbon, Gertrude Bell, Ross Burns, that kind of thing. Just essays by these different travel writers and historians. Nice picture in the back of an old Arab man. So that's basically what this is. This is actually a set I found right beside it, and this was really neat. Is the same series. This is Lebanon through writer's eyes. And again, you've got the list of authors. Some are repeats: Colin Thubron, P.J. O'Rourke, Mohammed Darwish, William Dalrymple, Khalil Gibran, Amin Malouf, well-known writer, Albert Hourani, Mark Twain, Gustave Flaubert, T.E. Lawrence, Hester Stanhope. So basically Western authors discussing Middle Eastern, their impressions of Middle Eastern countries. Again, nice back cover. Happy to have this. Lebanon, Syria, Americans might know in the news a lot. It's been recently in the news. There's been a new government recently. Lebanon is always not very far in the news as well. It's interesting because right now for Historathon Q1, I'm reading, this isn't part of my book haul, but I'm reading this. It's the Phoenicians. And the Phoenicians are the ancient Lebanese. And I tell you, this is before Greece and Rome. This is thousands and thousands of years before. But history, the more things change, the more they stay the same. History repeating itself. I'll discuss this book later in the month once I finish it for my video, my January reading wrap up at the end of the month. But I just thought I would mention that because it really is interesting. Anyway, so again, staying on the theme of Lebanon, the country of Lebanon, I found a bunch of books about Lebanon. Actually, one of the authors that were mentioned on this list of Lebanese essayists, I have his book. It's called Origins, a Memoir. It's by Amin Malouf. Again, a Lebanese, I think he's Lebanese, Franco-Lebanese, he's Lebanese-French. He's written a lot of books. He's famous for people who are into that kind of books. Yeah, he has his most famous book is probably The Crusades Through Arab Eyes. But he is, I think, a French author of Lebanese origin, and this is his memoirs, and it's called Origins, and I think it's him going back. Yeah, it's starting in the mountains of Lebanon, taking him across the sea to Havana. His history is one of relentlessness and exile. Again, anybody who knows anything about Lebanon, exile is a big part of the Lebanese cultural experience. I believe there are more Lebanese people outside Lebanon than there are inside Lebanon, which is interesting. So, Amin Malouf is an example of that. And then there's another example of that. This is Anthony Shadid, House of Stone, a memoir of home, family, and a lost Middle East. Again, he's an American Lebanese, and I think this is also a sort of memoir. Yeah, a memoir of home, family, and a lost Middle East. And I think that's a picture of him in his the village of his ancestors. And I think Anthony Shadid he's a journalist for the New York Times. He did a lot of reporting in the Middle East in the early 2000s during the Iraq War. And this is just him going back to Lebanon or going back to his ancestral roots and discussing what he sees. And then another book, again, about Lebanon. This is by an author that was also listed in the list of authors, both for Lebanon and Syria. This is Colin Thubron, The Hills of Adonis. And the subtitle is A Quest. Again, sorry about the glare. A Quest in Lebanon. I don't know if it's in focus, but this is travel writing. This is called Thubron. Walked the mountains of Lebanon, following the tracks and rivers. His journey was not only a survey for a remarkable country, but a quest for the gods and divinities who held the secrets of death and rebirth in the land's ancient cults. Travel writing mixed with a bit of history, again, focusing on Lebanon, Mount Lebanon. Um, Maybe I'll talk more about Lebanon again once I finish with the Phoenicians. Interesting country, interesting people. And then one more book about Lebanon or the region, many of whom are in Lebanon. It's a small book. It's by another well-known author of the region. He's also Lebanese, I think Lebanese American. This is called the Origins of the Druze, People and Religion. And the author is Philip K. Hitti in Arabic. And then there's a subtitle that says, with extracts from their sacred writings. The Druze are a religion. I was gonna say cult, but I don't think it's correct to say, because they're extremely old and influential and very prosperous religion that is based in that border area between Lebanon, Syria, and what is now the state of Israel. And there are Druze on all three of these countries, and they have a very mysterious religion. Again, this book is very small. They don't share it's very hard to get information about the religion. They're very secretive about it. But what we do know is that it's sort of an amalgamation, a mix of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Here it says the Druze. I'll read the back cover because I also don't know too much about them, despite being from the region and knowing a couple of Druze people that live here, getting to know them. It says the Druze, who can be traced back to the 11th century Levant, so right in the middle of the Islamic golden era, have long intrigued scholars of the Middle East. Their obscure origins and blending of beliefs from Ismaili Shiism, animism, Greek philosophy, Jewish and Christian mysticism, Iranian Gnosticism, and even Buddhism have set them apart from their neighbors. Philip K. Hitti reveals the remarkable Druze pantheon of semi-deities, and investigates their dogmas and rituals, noting the stratification between the few, uqal, elect wise ones, and the numerous jahil, ignorant ones. The book includes rarely seen extracts from the sacred writings of the Druze and offers a unique insight into this fascinating religious minority, one of many religious minorities in the Middle East. And then again, here's a bio of Philip Hitti. It says, who passed away in 1978, so this is an older book. Was born in Lebanon and taught at Princeton from 1926 to 1954. He was renowned for his contributions to Arab studies in the West. He is the author of numerous books, including The History of the Arabs, Lebanon in History, and Islam in the West. So, Middle East scholar talking about an obscure religious minority, the Druze. So you're seeing the subject matter here is very much Middle Eastern, mostly 20th, early 21st century Middle Eastern. These books will go on this shelf, although there's no space left on these shelves. I'll find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So the next book is by an author I think well known to many Americans. People, me being one of them, used to think he was just a crank. He would talk a lot about the conspiracy, especially of the American government and foreign policy. And I think he recently passed away, very recently, if I'm not mistaken. But after current events, especially in Venezuela, but possibly in other places soon, who knows? I think this author, just a few months after his passing, probably less than a year, has already become. I've reassessed my thoughts on him. The author is Noam Chomsky, and this is co-authored by Gilbert Ashkar. It's called Perilous Power: The Middle East and U.S. Foreign Policy. And you can see an American soldier there. There's a subtitle called Dialogues on Terror, Democracy, War, and Justice. So Noam Chomsky has written a lot of books about American foreign policy and its brazen aggressiveness, its covert actions. So again, I thought he was just a little bit of an academic loon, but he's being proven right, and we're seeing it in front of our eyes with the current U.S. administration. So this book is specifically about the Middle East. That's what attracted me to it, and it'll be the first book I've ever read of Noam Chomsky. So I'll give it a try. I'll see. There's a co-author, so I think this is one of his more recent books. I don't know why there's a co-author, but it's from 2007, so not too recent. But again, the subject fascinated me. Would talk about war in this part of the world again. This is timely. And then speaking about conflict and war in the Middle East region, this book is by Judith Miller. I'm just checking because there's a sticker over the author's name. Yeah, Judith Miller. It's called God Has 99 Names. And the subtitle is Reporting from a Militant Middle East. And this is, I think Judith Miller was a correspondent for the New York Times since 1977, was Cairo bureau chief from 1983 to 1986, and later the Times special correspondent to the Gulf War. Miller is the author of One by One by One and co-author of the best-selling Saddam Hussein and the Crisis in the Gulf. She lives in New York City. So this is an older book. You can see the map of the Middle East right there. This is an older book from 1996. You could tell from her career, she was in the 70s, 80s, probably the 90s. Bigger, I don't know where she is now, if she's got any other books. The name is familiar. You can see the sticker there. I'll remove that somehow. This used to cost $3.98, but it doesn't say what the shop is. But yeah, the name, the title, God Has 99 Names, refers to the, in Islam, God, Allah, has 99 names. And this, it just goes through, if we just go through the table of contents really quickly, just to get an idea. So there's the introduction, and there's Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Algeria, Libya, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Israel, Iran. So it'll be interesting to see, again, it's old, it's dated, but it'll be good to see what people in the mid-90s, before September 11th, before all that, what they were saying about the Middle East. And then her book, I had never heard of it, Saddam Hussein and the Crisis in the Gulf. That's one I'd be looking for. If this is good, then I'll definitely look for that one, if I can. And then two books, the next two books are actually, again, why I love reading history. You could get two different perspectives on the same subject. So these next two books, I'll start with this one. It's by Dor Gold, and it's called The Fight for Jerusalem. You can see the famous dome on the rock. The subtitle is Radical Islam, the West, and the Future of the Holy City. And this is also older, I believe, but this is from 2007. But then there's an updated with a new chapter on President Obama's Middle East policy. But I think Dor Gold is a author. But what I do believe is he is more of well, you can see it from there. It says Jerusalem is under assault. He's much more of a pro-Zionist Israel sympathizer. He comes from that ideological perspective, and this is his book about the Israel-Palestinian conflict, especially focusing on Jerusalem. And then this one is by Karen Armstrong. It's called Jerusalem. The subtitle is One City, Three Faiths. You can see two Jewish men on the Wailing Wall. You can see the Dome of the Rock for the Muslims, and then a church, the famous, it looks like an Orthodox church in Jerusalem. Karen Armstrong, if you saw part one of my video, I pulled another of her books. It was a biography of Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad. She's the author, most famously, of A History of God. I believe she was a former nun who left the nunnery profession and started writing books about God, spirituality, religion, etc. So this is her book about Jerusalem, and I believe, just from the title, you shouldn't judge a book by its title, but the mention of one city, three faiths, that it should be shared, I think is a bit of a contrast from this one, from the Dor Gold book. This one has the word fight in it, so this one is more, inclusive. So it'll be interesting. most likely would like to read these both at the same time and then compare and contrast. Um, that's fun for me. Um, so if we just keep going on, this next book is a famous book. It's by Andrew Scott Cooper. It's called The Oil Kings. And the subtitle is How the US, Iran, and Saudi Arabia Changed the Balance of Power in the Middle East. And there you can see President Jimmy Carter of the USA. You can see the Shah, and you can see the Ayatollah Khomeini. There's the word Saudi Arabia is there. There's no picture of any Saudi leader, but this is pretty much the story of. I mean, the word oil is there, so this is probably early 70s to. When was this book published? This is much more recent. I think it's well known by people who read Middle Eastern books. I see it in bookshops a lot. I finally grabbed it. This is from 2011. But I think this basically talks about the oil crisis in the 70s and then the Iranian Revolution, in which this guy got overthrown by this guy, basically, with this guy in the middle trying to find a solution. So I don't know how far it goes into the Middle East, but I'm imagining this is the 70s, pretty much the 70s, the Middle East in the 70s. And then sticking to the subject of Iran, I found this book. It's by Elala Rostami Povi, and it's called Iran's Influence. And I think this is a timely book. Again, this is an older book, 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Can I see that again, just to make sure? Yeah, 2010. I believe that this is like a warning to people, because this is in the news now. There's a lot of talk on social media that there's an imminent attack on Iran any day now. And this book is sort of like a warning that to think that this is going to be a cakewalk is not correct. To think that invading Iran, enacting regime change in Iran, nation building in Iran is going to be a cakewalk is not correct. Maybe I should read the back cover, because I don't know if I'll explain, because I'm not sure exactly where this author comes. Is he or she? I don't even know the gender of the author, but is the author sort of anti the Islamic Republic of Iran, or more pro the monarchy and a more Western-oriented Iran? It says here, there's a saying in Arabic, me and my brother against my cousin, and me and my cousin against the other, or the outsider. Iran's influence is the first comprehensive analysis of a role that Iran plays in Middle Eastern and global politics. Expert Iranian author Ilahe Rostami Povi provides a fascinating introduction to one of the Middle East's most controversial and misunderstood countries. Agreed. I agree about the misunderstood. Based on several years of original research carried out both in Iran and across the region, this insightful guide presents essential new ideas to help the reader understand the Middle East. So, very timely book, considering recent events. And then this is a book I've shown before. This is, when people ask me, is there a book you should read about the Middle East history, Middle East politics, Middle East in the 20th century? Let's just put it within that time frame. I always recommend this book. This is by Peter Mansfield. It's a history of the Middle East. This must be the fourth or fifth copy I have of this book. I keep picking it up. This is the fourth edition. That's how. There's even a fifth edition. You know how popular or how influential this book is when it's got multiple editions, and this is the fifth edition. And why I'm mentioning the edition is because the author himself, Peter Mansfield, has passed away. He passed away quite young, but his book lives on and is still influential for anybody who wants to really understand the Middle East. This one is the updated version, and you can see, I think that's the protesters in Egypt, or somewhere in the Middle East. The Arab Spring 2010, 2011. And what makes Peter Mansfield credible. He's not just another Western author writing about the Middle East. He was a British diplomat in the region, I believe in Lebanon, in the British embassy in Beirut. And he was seeing what the British, the French, and the American governments were doing in the Middle East in conjunction with their strong ally Israel. And he took a moral stance and said, no, this is not right. And he quit his cushy job as a diplomat at the British Foreign Service and started writing books, and he became a writer, a journalist. So he wrote a lot of books from a Middle Eastern perspective. He was a Westerner, he wrote in English, but he wrote his books with a Middle Eastern centric approach. Answering the question why they hate us, why they hate the West. You read this book, you'll understand that better. You'll understand the Middle Eastern mind frame better. So, a book I highly recommend by an author I recommend, well written and just a good. I don't know if it's the best book to read if you're a complete beginner, but still worth reading nonetheless. This next book is influenced by BookTube. BookTube made me do it. This is influenced specifically by JJ, her channel, JJ, the blacksmith bookworm, or the bookworm blacksmith. I always mix it up, but I'll link her channel below. You should check her out. She has a fascination with this figure. I saw this book. Actually, I saw two copies of this book. One had a boring cover. This one had a much more interesting cover. And look, it's in better condition. Although it was a bit more expensive, I still went for this one. This is Queen Noor. The title is Leap of Faith. Sorry, I didn't show the picture well enough. The subtitle is Memoirs of an Unexpected Life. So that's Queen Noor. And that's King Hussein of Jordan, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, another Middle Eastern kingdom. I guess that background is the deserts of Jordan, and then you can see them in the motorcycle. A very arresting cover. Queen Noor, well, let's read. Born into a distinguished Arab-American family. So she was raised in America. Lisa Halaby was to become the wife, her real name was Lisa Halaby, was to become the wife of the world's most eligible bachelor, King Hussein of Jordan. With eloquence and honesty, Queen Noor speaks of her life as a young bride, her role as a humanitarian activist, her heartbreaking miscarriage, and the birth of her 4 children, one of which is now the King of Jordan, because King Hussein died, I believe, in 1999 of cancer. I'm not sure if Queen Noor is still alive. She also gives fascinating insights into her support for King Hussein's campaign to bring peace to the Arab nations. But most of all, this is a love story, an intimate portrait of a woman who won the heart of a king and his country. So apparently she's very popular in Jordan. She's not really popular anywhere else. She's popular in America because of the story of the little American girl. And I don't know where she was raised, somewhere in the middle of America. And she, obscure random girl who became a princess. I don't want to get political in this video, but let's just say Jordan is a very pro-Western country. The monarchy and its existence relies on Western support. And then, yes, they probably loved each other. It's quite apparent. But how do we put this? Let's just say the Western intelligence services weren't against the marriage either. We'll leave it at that. And then speaking of Jordan, if you want to understand, I want to understand Jordan a little bit more. This is another book. It's by Yoav Alon, and it's The Making of Jordan. The subtitle is Tribes, Colonialism, and the Modern State. So Jordan is a small, obscure country. It's not even that wealthy. Its population is not that large, but it's right in the middle of the Middle East. It's got Palestine and the Holy Land to its west. It's got Iraq to its east. It's got Syria to its north, and it's got Saudi Arabia and the Gulf to its south. So it's right in the middle of the middle of the Middle East. So to understand Jordan, it's a small book. I've actually got another series about Jordan, which I also need to read. That is much more broad than this. It's a multi-volume. This is a small volume, but it's impossible to talk about Jordan in isolation. It has to engulf what happened in the Holy Land. It has to engulf what's happening in Syria and Iraq, in the Gulf. So it's always, when I see books about Jordan, the history of Jordan, I always, because it's not the history of Jordan, it's the history of the Middle East, really, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, 30 minutes. We're almost done. I promise we're almost done. The next two books are from the same author. This one, the author is Steve Cole, and this is The Bin Ladens. The subtitle is Oil, Money, Terrorism, and the Secret Saudi World. So this was, it's a biography of the Bin Laden family. The most famous Bin Laden is Osama, of course. This is from 2008. That period after 9/11 when people were just curious. I believe Steve Cole is also a journalist based in the Middle East. Pulitzer Prize, Washington Post South Asia Bureau Chief, and been the Post managing editor since 1998. He lives with his wife and 3 children in Maryland. So that's the other one. The more famous Steve Cole book, I think most people who watch this might know, is this, Ghost Wars, which won the Pulitzer Prize, winner of the 2005 Pulitzer Prize. Again, the subtitle is The Secret History of the CIA, Afghanistan, and Bin Laden from the Soviet invasion to September 10th, 2001. So basically, just the rise of Osama bin Laden and the Islamic extremism, Al Qaeda, that attacked America on September 11th. This is dated, but it's 2005 Pulitzer Prize winner. I still haven't read it, so I was happy to find it. I think lately he's written more recent books. I think I own one which is about the about Saddam Hussein and Iraq. But I do want to read this. I read recently. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Yeah, this one by Michael Burleigh, Blood and Rage: A Cultural History of Terrorism. So I don't know. Terrorism has been on my mind a lot. So when I saw this book, I grabbed it. Again, we don't want to get political, but let's just say that Western intelligence agencies, and I think this book will go through it, supported these Islamic radicals for much of the 1980s and 1990s, or they forgot about them in the 1990s, and then they came back and came back with a vengeance on September 11th, 2001. But all these radical Islamic groups, Al Qaeda, to a degree, ISIS, movements like Hamas in Palestine and Gaza, these were supported by Western intelligence. America were supporting the Mujahideen in Afghanistan against the secular Soviet Union. Londonistan, the British foreign intelligence was attracting radical Islamic preachers to come to London and gave them, free speech to spew their venomous propaganda, venomous ideology, because they were being arrested, in some instances killed in their native Middle Eastern countries because they were security threats, as we learned. And then Hamas is an Israeli invention. The 1970s, there was terrorism, there was Arab Middle Eastern terrorism in the 70s, but it was secular, communist-inspired secular terrorism in the 1970s. The PLO with their sign and their pro-Soviet stance. Israel created an Islamic movement called Hamas, which controls Gaza now and which attacked Israel on October 7th. They created them as a counter against the secular terrorists. And now they found themselves in a mess. All the Western intelligence agencies, at least they found themselves in a mess in the early 2000s. America did, Britain. But for the Israelis, it's an ongoing issue. And then the last two books are actually the Gulf region. This book, I don't know if I want, these are very local. I don't know how interesting this will be for my viewers. Very, very local. But this one is one I actually sent to Angelina for her birthday package. I sent her a birthday package full of gifts because she sent me a birthday package full of gifts. It's by Frauke Herd Bey. It's called From Crucial States to United Arab Emirates. That's the country that I live in. Frauke Herd Bey is a German scholar who moved to this country in the late 1960s, just at the cusp of a transformational time where the wealth from oil completely changed this country, the country that I'm in, completely changed it. And what she does here, it's a history, but it's also a anthropological or sociological look at the country just before oil changed everything. The death of the Arab nomadic Bedouin, the death of living off the land, because these countries were very much pre-modern until the 1950s, 1960s, well into the 1960s. So she just captures it before the country changed before. The term crucial states refers to what this land was called before it became the United Arab Emirates. The British Empire used to control India, and they controlled all the seas. They ruled the waves. Between India and Britain is the Middle East, and especially the Arabian Peninsula. And in the 19th century, what the British called piracy, these were nationalistic sailors who would attack British shipping, who were encroaching into their region. So the British called them pirates, and they attacked them. And for all intents and purposes, because Britain was such a great power, pretty much defeated them. But to be diplomatic, they called it a truce. And there were several ruling families, so they called it the Trucial States because of the truce that the so-called pirates and the British government made. But then in 1971, the Trucial States became the United Arab Emirates. So very local. I don't want to bore you. And then this one is also about this country, the UAE, or the region. It's by Sultan Muhammad al-Qasimi. It's called Power Struggles and Trade in the Gulf, 1620 to 1820. So this one is much more historical. This goes back before the 19th century. This goes back to the history of this region in the modern world. So there's a big discussion about Safavid Iran. If anybody knows what Safavid Iran is, it talks a lot about Venice and trade in pearls. This region, before oil, was famous for its pearls and pearl diving. So this is just a historical look at that region. Again, very local. Don't know if I explained it well. I could explain it, but that'll be a whole history lesson, and this video's already gone very, very long. So I want to wrap it up. But I want to thank you for watching this if you made it this far. There is a part 3. There'll probably be a part 4. I'm not making any promises about a part 5, but it's very much possible. Thanks again, Book 2. I'll see you in the part 3. Salute.